Actually, if you take a highlighter and highlight your screen, it works. In this episode of The Full Nerd, Kyle Bennett from HardOCP explains the controversial GeForce Partner Program. Welcome to The Full Nerd, episode 43, recorded on March 13th, 2018. I'm your host, Gordon Ma-Ung, with Elena Yee.
Hey, everybody.
Adam Patrick Murray.
Hey, I'm here.
And on the screen, I'm going to introduce, it's not Brad, because Brad is trapped in Florida at a wedding, but we have a super special guest. This is the Kyle Bennett, editor-in-chief of HardOCP. And for those who don't know, Kyle he's OG. He goes way back in the hardware review circle. Big claim to fame way back from a previous century. Kyle and
you're not wrong.
I don't want to date us, but in a previous century, Kyle and Tom's Hardware worked on the original Pentium 3 1.1 gigahertz. That, of course, you really, if you're saying you've never heard of a 1.13 gigahertz Pentium 3, that's because after Kyle and Tom's Hardware did some research on it, did some testing on it, Intel said, yeah, we're not going to sell this, actually. Please send them back. So that's how long he's been around. Those are Kyle's technical chops. And, of course, recently, about a year ago, Kyle was the one who first reported, and everybody said it was crazy, that Intel was going to be using an AMD graphics part in its chips. A year later, of course, it proved to be true. The latest explosive report from Kyle, extremely controversial as well. GeForce Partner Program. I'm going to let him explain it because, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff for me to understand. So,
how you doing, Gordon?
Hey, how's it going? That was a lot to. That's a big intro, right?
Yeah, it's been a long 20 years, hasn't it?
Oh my God! Don't say that. It's like,
GeForce Partner Program. So last week we published an article entitled, GeForce Partner Program impacts consumer choices, and as and to be full disclosure on this, correct? AMD did shop this story to us, all right? And you going back in actual tech journalism rather than tech reviewer people, we got to be journalists every once in a while. AMD did come to us, shop this to us, said, hey, we think there's a story there. With what they gave to us, it really wasn't a story at that time. But after a few weeks of going through and looking at exactly what GeForce Partner Program is about, it certainly gave us concern, and we wrote the article that we published on HardOCP. So if you're familiar with the way that Nvidia markets a lot of its products to its AIBs and OEMs, they come up with a lot of incentives.
Yeah.
Hey, if you sell GeForce GTX, we're going to give you this, and this. Okay, and that's the way it's been for years. That's the way business has been done. The difference here that's really. I'm going to read this off this document right here.
Yeah, and I've got your story here in front of me too. If you want to
gaming,
go ahead.
So in order for OEMs or AIBs to be part of this GeForce Partner Program, their gaming brand must be aligned exclusively with GeForce. And this is really where I had issue with this, looking into the GPP. So, and we use this in the article. The easiest way to look at this is, say, one of the most established brands that Asus has is its Republic of Gamers. So it's ROG branding.
This is just an example. You have no confirmation of that, though, right? Right. Just kind of.
I do. I have no confirmation from Asus that it is signed up to be part of this program. I do have confirmation from outside sources that Asus has signed, MSI as well, as of this morning, is what I've learned. But getting back to this, so if you look at Asus ROG branding, so they sell a number of ROG branded video cards that both carry the Nvidia and AMD GPUs. Under Nvidia's program, to be a part of the GPP, you would have to exclusively sell Nvidia GPUs. That AMD GPUs would have to be excluded from the ROG branding, which is obviously their most influential gaming brand that they've developed over the last decade, dumped millions of dollars into this brand, have made it tremendously successful. There's been some great parts that come out of it. I mean, it's so Nvidia. This is, like I said, the exclusivity is really the key here. That they're pushing. They're basically assuming ownership of Asus ROG brand in this hypothetical situation.
Right. But so this is it possible? And I'm going to be the devil's advocate of the internet. And maybe he's just interpreting this incorrectly. I mean, how does he know he doesn't work in Nvidia? Nvidia, in fact, hasn't told you what exactly it is. But are you just possibly interpreting it wrong? I mean, you did talk to board makers and PC makers too, right? So that's
yes. We interviewed multiple OEM. We interviewed multiple AIBs that would speak to us off the record. Nobody would speak to us on the record because they're afraid of a reprisal from Nvidia, either personally or company wide. Nvidia will tell you that this is not a big story. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Hey, he's all upset about nothing. But we've sent emails to Nvidia asking about specifics and our concerns on the program since February the 22nd, and those are still yet to be answered. So they're not being very transparent. They won't tell you who's a part of GPP. And if you look on their site and read GPP, which we quoted in our article as well, if you read the GPP outline, I think they use the word transparent in there 3, 4, 5, 6 times. But yet when you ask them questions about it, they go back to this Boilermaker PR statement that we've seen on a couple other websites. Sure. And the same thing that Nvidia has told us, in meetings. They're sticking with their story, or they're doing a good job of it. Right. But I think that let's go back to the exclusivity here. GeForce, and I'm reading this off documents, okay? That we're not going to share with we haven't published these documents because we do not want to harm any of our sources.
Right. We
don't want them to lose their jobs. We don't want them to have liability otherwise.
Sure.
And if we put these documents online, Nvidia does a very good job of being able to trace documents back specifically to partners they release due to the way they word them, due to the way things are spelled. There's different tricks they use to trace documents. So that's the reason we have not put those online to be viewed.
What about people who say, well, he's just making these up. He's got nothing for, he doesn't even have them in front of him. I mean, those folks, there's people going to say that, right?
Yeah, and I get that. And I appreciate that. And, that's a legitimate question, right? It is. Hey, well, why when you show them? Well, if I start putting people out of work and getting people fired from their jobs that will talk to us off the record about these things, then we would fail to be able to expose anything like this to the public, or be able to even talk about it, to ask questions about it, because you would never know that this has come about.
Right. So this comes down to the public's faith, or your readership's faith in your credibility as
I think our credibility speaks for itself. Like I said, you mentioned, and obviously the whole fanboy, I've seen the whole fanboy thing come out that he's a shill for AMD, and I've already seen that, and it's funny because I wish I had kept a calendar on how often I'm shilling for who on what weeks and what fanboy.
Yeah.
Because
and I can tell you one thing. I do remember clearly when you were in the doghouse with AMD over things in the past. So it's not,
When we wrote that article, AMD, Journey and Futility, talking about Radeon, what was going over there politically, which all the politics, and obviously those are facts are hard to substantiate.
Right.
I very much trust our sources on that. And now, since Raja has exited the building over there, I found a lot more people coming up to me at AMD going, wow, yeah, I read what you wrote, and yeah, you were dead on right. Now, just as far as from the political standpoint, what's really interesting is this GPP story with Nvidia does actually dovetail with that story, because like you said, we talked about the KB Lake G part being produced then, and we did get some of that wrong, and that at the time we thought it was a licensing contractual agreement that was going on, which it was not, which AMD produced that part for them straight out.
Right.
So there were some things, there were some sticklers in that part, or in that article, that were not correct. but the spirit of it certainly was correct.
Sure, right.
So,
and so on this though, I mean, I've seen stories now that people are saying, yeah, well, I think Dave James, who's a longtime PC format he wrote this for PC Games N, and basically saying, hey, I've talked to people, and you've talked to 7 people, and they've been saying, yeah, this program is like they want us to take our main gaming brand, align it with GeForce. Dave James is saying, no, I've talked to people, and they're saying that we just want a sub-brand. So we want like, ROG Green or ROG Red. So then you would have a sub-brand. Is that, do you think any of that's...
Sure, let's address that. Okay, PC Games In, and I wasn't familiar with their site until they wrote the article about our article. Okay,
right.
So I went over there and I did read that, and they seem to be basically they review games. I don't really think they're in the hardware business. I went back and looked at their last hardware review, and it consisted of running PC Mark on a laptop and then giving it a score. So that said, I don't really think they're in the hardware business. I don't think they're in the hardware review business, and I seriously doubt that they have the contacts that people like you and I do in the industry after doing this for so long.
Right.
Now, his specific wording in that article, I don't have it up on the screen right now, but indubitably says, we started digging a bit deeper. And that's all he says. He doesn't even say he talked to an OEM. He doesn't say he talked to an AIB. He does not give any clarity on who he spoke to at all there. And I would suggest to you that everything written in that article is exactly off Nvidia's boilerplate PR statement about GPP.
Okay.
Because that's what is written on his site or their site or whoever's site it is exactly what Nvidia has been saying to us in conversations since we started asking about this.
Right.
So let's address this. Hey, you get a ROG red brand and a ROG green brand. Well, that's not what this says. This says gaming brand aligned exclusively with GeForce. That's what this paper in front of me says, okay? So let's see. GPP agrees ship GeForce GTX exclusively on agreed gaming brand. Not included, but limited to desktop, graphics cards, notebooks, all-in-ones, small form factor, G-Sync monitors. Okay, so now let's go back and say, hey, well, first of all, if you go back and look at ASUS product page, using ASUS again because it's an easy example to point to.
And these are just examples, theoretical examples we're using.
These are just hypothetical examples. If you go back and look, you already have ROG green and ROG red. Because GeForce or Nvidia demands that every side of that box be emblazoned with the Nvidia stamping or branding or whatever it is. For Nvidia to suggest that there's no clarity in what's in that box is ludicrous. All right, it is simply ludicrous. This is simply Nvidia's way of going back over and taking ownership. And I use ownership there loosely, not in a technical term, but taking ownership of those brands while they have the ability to do so because of their strength in the market. So ASUS has spent millions of dollars on ROG, spent a decade building it, and Nvidia will tell you, well, that's fine. They can still sell AMD cards. They just can't do it under ROG anymore. Again, hypothetically.
Right.
So is AMD supposed to get their customers like ASUS to go back in and build other premium brands up for when Nvidia is pushing 70% of their volume and revenue? There's no way there's going to be sub brands or additional brands built that get the kind of support or marketing that a ROG brand with. And the other big thing on this, and which comes down, and now this is what I'm looking at this other sheet here. Hang on.
And he can't, again, Kyle, is not going to show us documents. He can't because, there's a risk of someone identifying.
But, so a GPP partner gets premier brand rebates and MDF. All right. A non-GPP partner does not get that MDF anymore. And you're talking about companies that have been given MDF for years, right, to promote those products, marketing development funds, and now they're going to hold those back if they're not a GPP partner. That is exactly what Intel got sued in Japan, Europe, and lost on it. Okay, just the MDF contingent of this alone. So I think this smacks of anti-competitive practice, and I think you're going to see that come forth.
Right, but at the same time, Intel, like when I see a commercial on television, if people still watch television, and I see
Netflix.
a Dell or HP laptop, at the end there's the Intel tone at the end, and that tells me Intel basically paid for part of that commercial, not all of it, but clearly they gave money. Isn't that kosher? I mean, Nvidia's just pushing their thing. I mean,
I think they pretty much already do that, don't they?
Good point. I mean, it's already on the box, and
it's already on the box. It's already emblazoned all over their site. I mean, if you look at the way the packaging has changed, I mean, to tell me that somebody's going to confuse an AMD part that has a huge red square across the front of it that says AMD Radeon, and over here on the box next to it, it's got a huge green square that says Nvidia GTX. Right? It's just asinine to suggest that that the consumers can't figure that out if it's important to them.
I also think, Gordon, though, that there's a big difference between having your branding appear in a commercial and then potentially crowding out like AMD from also doing the same. There's a big difference between the two.
Yeah. Let me be devil's advocate here. I want to be clear. I asked Nvidia if they would like to come on. They said, no, we're not touching this with a yardstick. They're like, we're staying away from this. Why
not? This is a totally transparent program that's great for the consumer. Why wouldn't you be here to discuss it?
I understand. I think from corporate marketing, PR, you just like, you know what, we don't want to add more flames to the fire, right? It's just maybe it'll just go away if we ignore it. I think that part of it. But if I were NVIDIA and I look at like, you know what, look, we're 70% of all of your GPUs being sold. Right? You can't even get these stupid Radeons to sell anyway because all the miners are buying them. Well, why don't we just, we're basically you're basically an all GeForce brand. You're getting all our cards. We want stronger branding. We want the boxes to be green. We want the cooler shrouds to be green. Just make them so we're clearly very different. We don't want anybody to mix up. Why should we? If I were NVIDIA, if I were Jensen, it's got deep pockets. It's like, why the hell am I paying my marketing money to help sell AMD parts? They can't even get you the damn parts to sell anyway, so why am I paying for it? I only want my money to go on these parts.
And you know what? That's a great argument on that point, right? But so if that's what NVIDIA wants, then why don't they help ASUS develop another brand specifically for NVIDIA instead of taking a brand away from ASUS and trying to own it themselves? See, that's the part, and this is the part that, and NVIDIA has been very careful on the words they have picked when I've spoken to them about this. No, they're still absolutely they can buy and sell AMD GPUs. We just want it done. They can do a sub brand for that. Well, developing a sub brand, that's easy to say, but when it comes to the realization to drive all that marketing and the development of another brand, that's an incredible investment by an AIB or an OEM. And the arguments I have, that this just hadn't come back from AIBs. This has come from OEMs as well when we're talking about laptops and desktops. And so while we keep using Asus ROG as an example, it's tremendously more far-reaching than this. And I will say this: every AIB and OEM that I talked to did not like this.
Yeah.
They hated this. They were pissed. I talked to some people that were upset about this tremendously.
And you talked to 2 people about this?
I talked to more than 2 people.
Yeah, he talked to 7. So you have 7 sources at 7 different companies. Several different companies.
Several different companies around the globe. Not just in North America, not just in China. And everybody confirmed all of our documentation. Like I said, I'm reading what's put in front of me, and we've confirmed the information with different OEMs, and they're not happy about it.
And NVIDIA has not responded to you at all, as far as you, nothing.
Not beside the standard boilerplate that you could read on the website that you mentioned a while ago.
Sure. And at the same time, just to be open, I did reach out to them as well for a statement, and when if they feel like they want to talk about it, and they haven't talked about it yet. So I do want to get, this is going to be the sticky thing now. some of your detractors will say, well, look, this is just a leak from AMD. This is just AMD slinging mud at us. So Kyle is doing the work for AMD to do the mud for us. And you have said up front, you got this from AMD.
Yeah, that's legitimate. I can totally see how people would see it through that lens. I mean, it is. But Gordon, you know as well as I do that manufacturers have shopped negative stories on each other for decades. This is to you and I. This is nothing new. But I tell you what, after the AMD story a year and a half ago about the Kaby Lake G part, I went, okay, I should have handled this a little bit different and been a little bit more transparent about some things, because that did get shoved down. And like I said, I got called a liar for a year and a half for everything in there. And actually, I got called a lot worse than that. But so I mean, and I told AMD, hey, if I go forward this, I'm telling everybody right up front where this story came from. We have run negative stories on AMD in the past that were planted by Nvidia. Hey, you really ought to look into this. This is not an uncommon thing to do, but I thought we just need to be more transparent about it. So this is sort of it's sort of a new thing, I guess, to the general public, and that they even hear about this, right? I mean, you know as well as I do, there's some pretty nasty underbelly to the whole actual tech journalist world.
Sure, it probably matches everything else, right? Companies. You know what, people, if you hear some dirt about your enemies, hey, why not leak it to them? But I got to say, though, when it does happen, if somebody says like, hey, I heard this, and if they're saying, I know this to be true, and they tell you as a journalist that, yeah, you can rely on me, this is right, and they're totally wrong, and you're the one who's out there hanging it, you're not going to go, right? I mean, that's
why I spent 3 weeks working on this story to get corroborating sources. So had I just gone with what AMD said to us, the information, then obviously that would have been irresponsible on my part.
Right.
I mean, it would have. Then that's nothing more than rumor mongering, and you know that as well as I do.
Yeah, and that is not, that's not the right thing to do. But you definitely because I gotta say, it's hard for me to believe that this program would be so overreaching to try to grab control of a main brand. But you're saying all these people said, yeah, this is what we understand. Isn't it possible it's just a mix-up here, or some kind of lawyer thing, or I don't know.
I would highly suggest that lawyers are going to be involved in this very soon.
Yeah, I see
lawsuits coming out of this, but I
was going to say, over on YouTube, we got some people wondering about the FTC. At what point do they hop in?
I don't know, right? I don't work for the FTC. And actually, I don't want to be speaking to them either.
Yeah.
I actually have a question from a slightly different angle, kind of dovetailing with the whole AMD planted this, and then the fact that you guys are talking about context and going way back in the industry. So what's keeping all of these manufacturers like the ABs and OEMs from getting together and basically saying, as a group, no, we're not doing this? And since they would have that group power to basically say, no, you can't force all of us to do it. And basically a union striking. No one's going to break the picket line. So,
that is a great question, and that was discussed. There were some legal issues that were put forth for, say, all the OEMs to come together to try to negate this contract from being pushed on them. So it was considered. And I know that was disclosed to me, and I know I was told that it was very likely that would not happen for legal reasons. So
what kind of legal reasons?
I don't know.
Oh,
that was not disclosed to me.
Yeah, maybe
it's
not disclosed
like a contract they signed.
Maybe, or maybe it's also trying to if you're talking about enough vendors there, it's enough market share control. It could be regulatory issues, I would think. I don't know. Who knows, right? We're not lawyers. I am not a lawyer, right?
Well, and Ready Player One on YouTube says then Nvidia can just go to more direct sales and say, F you guys.
Well, Nvidia already sells cards direct.
Yeah.
We broke that story, I think, 7 years ago.
And at least you can get them at the right price. I mean, they're doing the right thing there, so they're not marked up. So
yeah, I've actually talked to Nvidia recently about being able to and we talked about this as kind of not meaning to segue to a different storyline here, but I suggested that Nvidia use its GeForce Experience program to verify who are actually gamers in the community that have X amount of number of hours gaming on their cards to be actually have priority to purchase off their website instead of miners going and buying them.
Oh, that's an idea.
So, I'm not anti-Nvidia. I've got 2 Nvidia cards in this box sitting at my feet right here that I gamed on last night. So
let me get this, Kyle. If you told somebody what's the best video card I can buy, fastest, no holds barred, right now today, Vega 64?
No.
Wait, so you're saying they shouldn't buy an AMD card? You're saying the fastest video card?
It depends what you want to use it for, right? There's a whole bunch of use case scenarios there.
Sure, but for gaming, I'm a gamer. I don't want a water cooler. What's the best?
I would, if a general suggestion I would tell anybody if they want to get into gaming now is to buy 1070 or better.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I'd put it. And yeah. They're good cards, and they got enough chops to get you a VR as well if you want to get down the road with VR setup.
Sure. So and of course I bring that up because I want to show that Kyle's not going to say no. You should go out and buy a Vega 64 or 56, right? He's saying his recommended pick is a GeForce card, right? So
yeah,
this is not about Kyle being cooked either one way or the other as far as the hardware goes.
So early on in the YouTube chat, it was kind of going back and forth of people being like, this is just business. This is how business goes, and some people saying no, it's anti-competitive, and we want to make sure that that there's more players in the market. I mean, what are the implications of this if it were to happen?
I think sadly he's right. It's exactly how business goes. Now, whether or not that business is illegal or not is the question here.
Right, and that's.
I think at best they're skirting the edge of the legal envelope, but I am not a lawyer. That is not my call to make. I'm not going to stand up and represent anybody. But looking at, like I said, which if you look at what Intel's done in the past to shut AMD out of the marketplace, this looks incredibly similar to that scenario.
Right. But as you say, this is business. And I think they also got to realize that if I'm a large OEM, and I go to AMD and I said, hey, yeah, we're thinking about buying these Ryzen parts. What can we get them for? How much can you sell them for? And they said, we'll sell them for you this. I'm going to go right back to Intel. I say, hey, next year we're going to sell 25% Ryzen. Unless you want to give me a better deal. And you know what? If Intel's going to give me a better deal and I'm going to make more money selling Intel chips because they're giving me a better deal because it's already 80% of what I sell, am I going to hurt my shareholders and say, no, I just want to support AMD because I want to support AMD? You know what? As a business person, you're going to say, I'm going to screw you now because, that's the way business is, right?
Well, I think a lot of that you have to look at, and yes, you're correct, right? It is business. It is still capitalism at the heart of all of it. But you also have to look at the long-term impact of brands if you start shutting vendors out of your product lines as well.
Right.
So look at how well Ryzen has done in this past year, and in heavily threaded scenarios, that part has been great. Right. And I mean, so if you're going to go down the road and shut vendors out of your product line and not do business with them, what new products are going to be out in 18 months?
Right.
It may not mean so much right now, but to shut out a brand from your marketing that could be cutting off your nose to spite your face further down the road as well, because that's been everybody's argument. You can't buy a damn video card right now anyway.
Yeah.
So what does all this mean? Well, honestly, at the moment, it really doesn't mean much because, like I say, you can't buy them, and Nvidia from a high-end gamer standpoint owns that. Right? They have AMD's no competition toward the higher end of that. So a lot of people kind of look through the lens right now of going, well, what's the big deal? But hey, let's look at Q2 18 or Q2 19 when Navi hits and say maybe things are totally different then. And so will those companies still be able to go out and equally market those Navi products that people are going to want and be able to represent them to the consumer base to make their own consumer choices? Or is it going to be stuffed under some no-name brand because they can't sell Navi parts under their hypothetical ROG brand anymore?
Yeah.
So
But that's the other thing is like, well, so what would the motivation be for this? I mean, you can't buy Radeons because the miners eating them. You can barely buy Nvidia cards because the miners are eating all those. But why would they even bother to invest all this energy to skirt the anger of the hardware community just to do this program, which, you know, everybody's going to complain about? Why? It just, if I were to like say like it doesn't make any sense, Kyle, that would be like, maybe this is just everybody's got this wrong, you know. So I don't know.
I think all this started with the Kaby Lake G part and the Palo Alto chipset that AMD built. I think Jensen saw that as a big threat, and I have not, and I can't say that I've corroborated this information through multiple sources, but I do believe at that time that a similar program was put in place that we don't have any documentation of. I think this program actually goes back under a different name for possibly a year. That was aligned specifically to be focused on Kaby Lake G, and we kind of seen GPP kind of spread its wings a little bit to cover more categories.
It does. I mean, I got to say, maybe the Kaby Lake, because, you know, mobile gaming laptops are every year it's growing and growing and growing, and the control over that gaming laptop is no longer in the OEM or ODM's hands, right? It's not MSI or ASUS making it. Now it's what you get from Intel, right? And whose chip they put on that EMIB. So, I mean, maybe there's truth to that. I mean, like in 5 years from now, it's Intel holding the hands of what GPU goes into gaming laptops, right? I mean,
these are not short-term. These are not short-term knee-jerk reactions by Nvidia. These are very well planned out tools that they're trying to put in place to control the market for the next decade. This is not about what's selling this year.
Right. And to be fair to Nvidia, aren't they just reacting to I mean, Kaby Lake G is a really huge threat to Nvidia in a lot of ways, right? So
absolutely.
Is this program a reasonable response to something like that?
So what if, let's say hypothetically, what if right now while Kaby Lake G was trying to get some legs under it, that Nvidia started telling OEMs that, hey, if you sell a Kaby Lake G part, we're not going to sell you Max Q parts anymore.
Yeah, and we have no proof of that. We have absolutely no proof of that.
That is just a hypothetical situation.
So, I will say, I mean, there are only 2 vendors that are selling Kaby Lake G laptops, right?
I wonder why aren't all of them selling them?
It is an interesting question, but it goes back to everything we're discussing here is just theory, hypotheticals. But again, it gets back to the same thing. It's like,
if all of them aren't selling them, isn't that limiting consumer choice of what's available to you in a hypothetical situation?
In a hypothetical situation, yes, but at the same time, I got to say, if I sell gaming laptops, and then do I want to make this one duck small, you know, very low margin, low volume, or it's probably low margin, low volume laptop that ain't no one gonna buy, or do I want to stick by GeForce, which is 95% of my stack? That's what 95% of my customers want. You know what? If I have a choice between let's just stick with this, I get a better deal on GeForce parts, or do I want to do this one thing for one SKU? It's just, you know, getting back to hard business, I'm going to go with the brand that's been carrying me so far. So.
But if that's what drove all product decisions, then we wouldn't have any innovation at all in the industry, which is at the nature of when you say anti-competitive, it is stifling innovation. And that is exactly what it is. So.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad too, because I mean, God, I just think again, just to represent business people, but remember the days when there were 5 or 6 or 7 graphics vendors and 5 CPU vendors? If we still had that sort of crazy world today, we wouldn't sort of get into these battles where it's fighting back and forth over this kind of crap. Or it'd be better just to sort of have everybody fighting over who makes the best parts, not who has the best deal, right?
You know, Intel was put down for this, right? For anti-competitive behavior, and look at how long we had frickin' 2 and 4 core CPUs at $300 and $400 and $500. And you know as well as I do that their anti-competitive behavior, which very much looks like some of what's going on here with Nvidia GPP, stifled our industry for a good while.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Intel's, you know, it would have been better if there were competition. If we had cost, $200 8-core CPUs 3 years ago, we wouldn't be in a different world already, right? Everywhere from software to games and everything, right? So you got to put the parts out there for people to use it.
So real quick, we have some good questions piling up on YouTube. Rusty Shackelford's asking, Kyle, what is stopping Nvidia from just making their own custom air-cooled cards and undercutting the AIB partners?
Well, first of all, they do make their own custom cooled cards, and they do sell them. That's their Frontier editions, and I like those cards. Those are good, solid units. So I would suggest
Founders
to you
edition.
That,
Sorry,
Founders edition. Oh yeah.
See, he's working for AMD.
I would suggest to you that Nvidia has looked at that exact scenario. And here's what, once you get down the supply chain, you think these guys are making mints selling these video cards, that Asus and MSI and all these guys are making this huge amount of money selling these video cards. They're not. The points on video card sales are horrid. They are horrid. And that's one of the reasons we have so few competitors left in the industry, because everybody else has been run out of business because there's no money to be made in it. So they're doing the dirty part of the job, to answer Mr. Shackelford, right? The channel and your add-in board partners are doing the dirty part of the job, and they're doing it for pennies on the dollar what Nvidia could do, what it would cost Nvidia to do for themselves. Right, and that also keeps. So why not let them handle the volume? They'll make huge margin on actual technology and the GPU itself, and let Asus get 6 pennies on a dollar, or go under where they have to start rebating the cards or kicking them back MDF to make up for their losses. So.
I feel bad for those card vendors now, man. I just isn't this so? The coin mining actually is good for them, right? Because they're getting.
I don't think they even see some of that though, because it's being resold. It's not like the actual AIBs are selling it for like those crazy inflated prices. People would revolt. It's
the stores doing it, right? Or not even the stores. It's the people buying them and then reselling them that are doing it.
Well, I would suggest to you that actually while obviously the AIBs selling to miners, which they don't have any control over as far as on the public open market of that, I would suggest to you that there are GPU manufacturers that are selling naked GPUs to mining companies now that are building their own boards and writing their own drivers.
Yeah,
and
I can believe that. Right?
Yeah, I would suggest to you that's where the bulk of all your missing GPUs are going.
Interesting. So that's where all the allocation is. Any other?
Bryant Mitchell on YouTube is asking, so what happens to a company that refuses to sign? How hurt will they be? Theoretically.
Well, there's a whole list of things here they don't get. And I pointed some of these out in the article, right? In one of the paragraphs that does specify what they get.
Which the link is in the description if you want to go read the article. Just want to mention that.
So I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 things here. If you're a GPP partner, what you get, right? Which is 17 things. If you're a non-GPP partner, you get access to 2 of those.
And again, like marketing, they pay for some of the commercials, some of the advertising, that kind of stuff. But again, this sort of brings up. So Elena was saying earlier about like, why don't they all get together? But I guess isn't it possible they say, yeah, this is not a great deal. We're just not going to sign. Is there any possibility they could be in a video card or gaming business and just say, we're not going to? You know what? We're just going to. If everyone didn't cross that line, wouldn't it be okay?
Well, how can they do that when 70 to 80% of their revenue is dictated on that current part of that current vendor? How do you say, hey, we're just not going to do it, and then that vendor is going to shut you down, and you're not going to get allocation. And I mean, so Nvidia has control here by pulling allocation purse strings, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I know we promised you 38,000 GPUs next month, but we had some supply problems. We just can't get them to you.
Right.
Right. But if everybody said, okay, well, we'll just wait until you get it, then that means that theoretically, Nvidia could just have a bunch that gets stockpiled that nobody's actually taking. Or
maybe they just, but I think the obviously we're asking this question we know the answer to. Once one crosses that line, everybody else has to cross the line, right?
Yes.
Because they have an advantage.
That's what I said earlier. It's like a union strike.
Yeah.
No one can cross the picket line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I honestly I can't remember the exact wording that was given to me for the legal reasons as to why not, or not that I should share those anyway. But that was very much looked at. That was considered a possibility. So that tells you how upset these OEMs and AIBs. Well, the OEMs more than the AIBs. Sure. I think the AI. I know MSI. I was told that MSI is not too happy about it. MSI did not tell me that directly. And like I said, I think ASUS was more on board with the program than not. So,
sure. But I mean, but again, it's just like it's so. If I were to represent that side of it, it's so hard to actually see Nvidia trying to be so hardball about this because they have a reputation for being highly competitive, which is why they're in number one. There's a reason why, because they're hyper competitive. But at the same time, these kind of things like pissing off all their partners and then really sort of skirting attention of possible, regulators. It just seems like, isn't it possible we just got everything wrong? Or the card vendors are just, we know because vendors like to complain, right? They're like, vendors are pretty much like users. They like to complain, except they don't have Reddit for vendors. They complain to us, the media, about like,
for vendors.
So-and-so is screwing us so bad on this, right? But they like to complain. And I just, I don't know. It's hard to believe. It's just hard to believe.
I said the same exact thing when the story was pitched to me. I'm like, this is stupid. Yeah. They're not doing this. And then, like I said, then I started getting the documentation. I'm like, they're really doing this. What is the motivation here? But like I said, I think this is not a short-term ball game for Nvidia. They're looking for this to reach down the next decade of business with them.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of this, I think there's going to be a lot of this attached to keeping Kaby Lake G out of the marketplace as well.
Yeah, and and again, this is part of the strategic warfare between Intel and Nvidia these days. Because I remember way back, you guys probably never heard this. Intel has been ordered to include in the past PCI Express in its chipsets and CPUs, and the reason is there was a fear by Nvidia that, hey, you know what, Intel's going to make a PC and they're not going to put PCIe lanes in the PC. Right. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know they were ordered to do it. And there was an agreement where Intel basically by law had to put PCIe lanes into a CPU for a while because they didn't want them to shut out Nvidia. So, I mean, there are games that, and, frankly, if I were Intel, of course, we all complain now. It's like, well, that's insane. That would be so anti-competitive against Intel or against Nvidia. Well, not and AMD sort of. But you know what? If 5 years ago, if Intel had successfully shut off the PC so you couldn't put PCIe lanes into it, people say, wow, that was so brilliant. I mean, look at the threat that NVIDIA is to Intel now, right? NVIDIA is a huge threat to Intel and data center and supercomputers and all this stuff. It's like, wow, what if you just had a way to lock them out of the PC, Intel, which, they couldn't do. So I don't know. It's always interesting.
I think this whole GPP is actually more about Intel than it is AMD.
Yeah, that's funny because I was like, why would they even care about Intel? I mean, no one's gaming on Intel at this point, but that's a really good point, right?
Because still Nvidia doesn't make CPUs.
Yeah.
How many non-AMD, non-Intel games have you played on an Nvidia GPU?
Right.
Probably none.
Yeah.
But so I think I think AMD and Intel getting together on that Palo Alto chipset part, which is Kaby Lake G, I think that got some people really concerned because all of a sudden now we're looking at, hey, we've got this on one substrate. We've got really good gaming here. We've got really good gaming GPU wise. We've got really good gaming CPU wise. And if they can continue to do that, nobody needs Intel or nobody needs Nvidia anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people don't understand, but that is a huge ballgame. Right now, that's a laptop message.
So that shuts everybody out of their gaming laptops if that's a successful avenue to go down. And what's NVIDIA saying they have to be here? We want to own your gaming brand.
Right.
They don't want those parts in gaming brands.
Yeah. Something you think about for people who think like this is purely them just doing this out of nothing. Any more questions from the chat? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to ask Kyle a question.
Yeah, Rusty Shackelford has another question. Kyle, what's your opinion on... what's Kyle's opinion on what he thinks will happen in the next year or two regarding this program? What do you think the future holds for this?
I don't know. I mean, I'm suggesting that we might very likely see lawsuits out of this. So if that happens, then I would suggest it's going to probably stop, because we would probably see some injunctions. And I think one of the reasons that's good question, Rusty, because here a lot of people have asked this, and I think it's about what was AMD's motivation. Because, like I said, I don't think this story is as much about AMD as it is about Intel and Nvidia as it is AMD. I think the motivation here by AMD was to stop this from happening, is why they leaked this to the press. Everybody's like, well, why didn't they just file an injunction against them? Why didn't they do this legally? Why didn't they do that legally? Well, doing things legally is expensive. All right.
And slow, very slow.
Exactly. And you're talking tremendously time consuming in terms of resources, both time and money. So I think AMD wanted to leak this out there to get some public knowledge of it and see if it got some resistance. And also, if the public is pissed off about it, then that actually gives OEMs a little bit more leverage and pushing back on it. It really does. And go, hey, we can see what's going on here. So, exposure. I think exposure and lawsuits is going to dictate exactly what happens next. But as we were talking previously, Nvidia is telling websites right now that they don't need to be covering the story because it's nonsense.
Right, because Kyle's crazy.
Follow up to that question: who do you think would be filing those injunctions?
I should not answer that question.
Okay, that's fair.
Right, that's regulatory issues, right? So who knows? Who knows? But it does move slow, right? If you rely on the courts, by the time you get out of the courts, you won't even be in business.
It's already over with.
Generally, right? A lot of times that does happen. So, but again, this motivations for AMD, they want to sling mud at Nvidia. Nvidia's not, and I got to say,
absolutely.
And I know, the thing about that's crazy. Everybody recommends GeForce. I recommend GeForce. Great products, top cards to buy. And at the same time, no one likes Nvidia right now, right? They have, but part of that is just when you're number one. I can tell you, I hate the Patriots. I don't like the Patriots. Didn't root for them in most of the Super Bowls.
No football analogies. Oh my God, Gordon.
But no, I mean, it's just things like, you know what? I gotta tell you, when I see a leak about the Patriots cheating or they're doing something, I have no idea if it's even true. But I'm gonna be like, yeah, look at this, because I am a Patriot hater, Brad. And it's just like, so I mean, how much of this? Definitely, people they just hate on Nvidia right now because they're so damn good, right? I mean, it's just,
they are.
This last Super Bowl,
and let's face it, they've always been the bad boys, right? I mean, how many CEOs make sure they walk out on stage in a black leather jacket every time they've seen in public?
Right.
I mean, okay, come on. I know you're old enough to remember the Fonz, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the only time you ever saw the Fonz without his black leather jacket was after he got finished having a session with a young lady.
Yeah.
Okay. I see the Jensen walk out in that black leather jacket, and so they portray that bad boy image, and they use it to their advantage. And I'm not going to tell you I don't like it sometimes. It's good. I like seeing them kick ass and take names.
Right.
And they've done a great job at it. They've innovated, and they've helped push. They've got parts in the marketplace right now that are pushing game developers to do newer and better things. I mean, gaming. Yeah, it's our hardware right now is outpacing our games, and the way I look at things, right? But I'm a hardware guy, so maybe I'm wrong. But
Ruru2 says Lisa Sue needs a pink leather jacket to counteract that. So
it doesn't have to be pink.
No, it
that's
doesn't.
sexist.
Yeah, right.
Just be a leather jacket.
Could be a Michael Jackson jacket with the zippers everywhere.
Yeah, a red jacket with some zippers.
I don't know. That would be. Yeah.
So Halistine Jenkins is asking Kyle if he thinks the days of desktops are becoming limited.
I'm sure I am on. Kyle's on the same page as me.
The age-old desktop PC is going away.
Yeah.
For our audio listeners, there's just a lot of head shaking. A lot of head shaking.
So we were one of the first sites to really get behind AMD's Eyefinity, right? And that was a big thing. Multi-screen monitor gaming. That was a big thing. And I guess 2 years ago I finally moved to the monitor I'm looking at you guys right now is a 48-inch Samsung, right? 4K. And there's no way I can get this gaming experience on a laptop. And it's just there's always going to be a niche for that desktop. And I've heard this, ever since they started building desktop replacements, DTRs. Oh, this is going to kill. No, it's not. You can't upgrade them. They break. They're hot. It's not going to happen. Most of the people that are serious first-person shooter gamers that I know, if they own a gaming laptop, it's simply for mobile reasons, to be able to move around easily. But they don't use it at home.
That sounds like a really good opinion to me.
Like something you've heard or actually said before.
I don't know. I never know where I heard that one before.
Yeah, but what do you think about non-modular power supplies?
Hey, I'm not a fan. I don't know if Kyle knows this, but I'm not a fan of non-modular power supplies. I would actually like to hear Kyle's opinion on modular power supplies.
When it comes to building new systems, they're nice to have. I don't know why they do the 24-pin ATX modular. That I don't understand that, because that's from an engineering standpoint, that's one place we really don't want any plugs, right? We don't want any plugs there, and we don't have any reason to have any plugs there. So I don't know why they do full modular, right, where everything is modular. I'd rather see that not. I like the modular power supplies from the fact that they just allow me to easily customize what leads I have running around my case, right? Instead of trying to.
Gordon.
Yeah, weird. Huh.
I've said that as a plus of it too, right? But you know what? 95% of people who buy modular power supplies, they don't buy short leads or long leads. They just buy it because it's modular, and then they plug every single plug in. So what's the point of being modular?
You mean like you?
I do too, because you know what? I bet if we go to HardOCP's lab, there's going to be a box, and it's all the extra modular power supply cables that no one knows what they go to in a box, but nobody can stand to throw them away.
They give you a
and those
bag.
are not universal either, right?
Oh no, never universal, but you can't throw it away. You can't.
Well,
throw it away.
you've got a lead from Thermaltake, and you've got a lead from Sunflower, whoever the hell, and it may be a PCIe lead. Those don't necessarily plug in the same, right. Even though the plugs are the same. The wiring may not be the same on how those run. I've actually set a system on fire doing that one night.
Oh boy!
All I'm saying is, Gordon, just keep your stuff organized. It's fine.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Like, how many systems do you have at home, Gordon?
I like 6, right?
I learned to label mine, Gordon. I have all mine in a bag with a piece of tape wrapped around it with the name of the power supply on it.
It's not hard, Gordon.
That, you know what? But then somebody takes it out of the bag, or the label falls, the tape falls off the bag. It's just like,
you better teach your kids proper labeling.
But again,
teach your family just to respect your stuff.
Are you going to go in like, well, why don't I just plug it in and find out? I just got brand new 1080 Ti. I'll just find out by plugging it into the card and seeing if it's the correct one. No.
If you can't tell, Kyle, this is a long-running debate among us.
I'm going to convince them.
Kind of got that.
One of these days, they are going to smoke a system, or they're going to lose the cables, and then they are going to see. I'm right on that.
Well, what's funny is I've actually thrown away good power supplies because I didn't know if I had the right leads. And I was like, I know this power supply is good, and I chuck it because I'm like afraid to plug anything into it. And I'm too lazy to actually to get out the wiring diagram and figure out if it's right.
Well, and the even worse thing now, and I say this because at one point it would be easy, because you could go like, well, it's not a problem because I know that this is this rail and this is this rail by the color of the lead. Oh no, we can't do that anymore because it'll upset you, because the end users have demanded it. We make all the cables black.
It's all black.
Instead of red, yellow, white.
So, Adam, you've managed to fit in your one derailing question for the show. You've kept your tradition.
That's my role. I get paid. So I'm going to get a paycheck. I'm glad. Bastelwe, I don't know how to say his name, over on Twitch, is talking about GeForce Now streaming. Could that be the death of desktop gaming?
Have you used it?
I actually have. I haven't had too much of a problem, but I have a great internet provider here in the Bay Area. So
I do too, and I've had it really. So I've used GeForce Now. I've actually used it to play a bunch of Fortnite with.
Oh, nice.
And I'm gonna tell you what, it works really, really well. But conversely, trying to play Wolfenstein on it is just a cluster. So it's everything I've seen. That's the two instances I can give you right off the top of my head. But game to game is a big difference for some reason. And why would Fortnite work so much better than Wolfenstein? I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
But that's exactly what I've seen.
Yeah, and like for me, I've used it. Got to say, it's GeForce. The streaming is just it's amazing for what it is. But in no way am I trading a video card in my desktop for it.
Not for Twitch gaming.
Leslie Lai on YouTube says, maybe GeForce is more optimized for Fortnite, or the other way around.
Well, yeah, maybe so. I mean, obviously that's a Bethesda title, Wolfenstein, but it still just gets where, for even anybody competitive is probably, or let's say hyper competitive with titles like Fortnite or PUBG or this sorts of things. That's, cloud gaming is going to be a big pill to shove down their throat and let them think that they're getting the same performance. They're just not.
Yeah.
And Ready Player One asks, Nvidia hasn't cut off your GeForce Now account yet, Kyle?
You know what? I haven't looked.
We're gonna get him back. What are you gonna do, boss? Okay, give him a really lousy experience in this one game. That's it.
Oh, he loves to play Wolfenstein, man. Just chop that frame rate. Oh,
cut it down to console quality.
One thing that was really cool about GeForce Now, though, was obviously the games has to be supported by GeForce Now currently, right? Mm-hmm. But if you went to install it back through, so you had to verify, say, your Steam games that were already installed at in the GeForce Now cloud. It just like instantly, you just instantly had it, right? As long as your Steam would hook up with GeForce Now and basically verify your licensing of a particular game and just let you play it. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't any big install times. You could just go play it, a couple checkboxes, and you're on your way. So it was fairly seamless. It was a good experience. I mean, if I was on the road, and that's kind of what I see it in. If I was having to use my gaming laptop instead of my most awesome PC here at home.
Right. Wait, are you being paid by Nvidia to say that this is an awesome experience? No,
I tell you, man. I shill for red one day and green the next. I try to hit both sides of it.
So, there's been some mention here and there, not a specific question, but a lot of people are talking about GameWorks and HairWorks and all these other things that Nvidia tries to force into their games. Is that just another layer of anti-competitive? Because I've been playing Final Fantasy 15 that just came out on Steam, and they have a ton of stuff that adds to the game if you're on a GeForce card.
I've seen a lot of that argument, and I can see where people would kind of make that correlation. Okay, it seems just on the surface. I've never really looked at GameWorks as being anti-competitive at all. If they have special hardware and tech that they can make something better on X, and the developer wants to do that, I've never seen, hey, this game, they'll say Mass Effect supports GameWorks, but it won't work on an AMD card. Now that would be a little bit different, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess I see where they have that correlation that you're cutting. They look at it as cutting features. I know Nvidia looks at it as adding features. I like GameWorks. I can't hold that against them. I think it's done some great things, and I think it helps. I think it helps make PC games better overall because it keeps elevating the bar. And I hadn't seen AMD or Nvidia lag that far behind when it comes to awesome features. I mean, AMD used to kick butt in tessellation when Nvidia couldn't, had nothing there for it, right? So it goes both ways. It's just that everybody just remembers what happened last immediately.
Yeah, and then going back to the GameWorks controversy, rehash ancient old stuff. AMD basically came out with allegations like, "Hey, you're pushing these black box DLLs libraries to developers, and there's specific language you're saying you cannot optimize for Radeon if you take these." That was an allegation AMD made. Everybody asked them, like, well, can you prove it? Can you prove it? They could never ultimately prove it. Again, the difference, there is a big difference here. Kyle he has seen he has talked to people. And he's seen some documentation saying, Align specifically. GameWorks, I don't think anybody ever proved. And, again, I'm kind of with Kyle here. To be fair with Nvidia, there was a business decision. Why the hell are we paying to develop why should we help optimize for our competition? And that was, Nvidia's said that we're not going to help them. Our job is not to help AMD, that they can help themselves. So, we do the special stuff, let them do the special stuff. And they denied it and said, no, absolutely not. We did not require people to not optimize for Radeon. So,
yeah.
And real quick, we got somebody, Mark, in YouTube asking what is even Hairworks and GameWorks and stuff. If we could back that up real quick for people who might not know.
Special
for
effect
all the AMD fans.
For people who have hair. If you like playing Final Fantasy.
So Elena can only answer this question.
Well, you could too.
I know, yeah.
You have
I've
a very
hair.
full head of hair.
I need to get a
Adam
haircut.
does have
a little,
full hair.
I mean, if you tried really hard and had the right products, you could do the Final Fantasy 15 hair.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they have not missed the marketing opportunity in Final Fantasy. I mean, there's definitely like a mousse or hair gel kind of ad.
I'm sure
for
in Japan
Final Fantasy.
I bet in
have
Japan
some,
they have it. I bet you're exactly right.
Because that hair is just like, we got to go fight this end boss. Oh, hang on. I could do my hair.
Well, who was it? I can't remember.
30 minutes.
brush it off my face.
One of the high fashion brands is Chanel or something. I used the main character for Final Fantasy 13 as their ad campaign.
Seriously?
I can't remember who it was. Yeah, it was. I'll have to show you that later.
Oh yeah, Japan has all these crazy.
No, this was in America.
Really?
Yes. Whoa. This was an American ad campaign.
Is that the character's weakness though? It's like, oh, I just hit him in the arm with the 12 gauge. No problem. Oh, I messed his hair up. Oh, he's weaker now because their hair is messed up. They have to fix their hair. Those Final Fantasy games, the hair is insane.
I mean, it's a Japanese game.
Oh, Louis Vuitton Lightning.
Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, there it is. Louis Vuitton.
Like a handbag?
I don't. I'll have to look it up. I can't remember. Yeah. Also, we got a big fan in here. The CJ71984 says HardOCP is legit. Been reading that site since 2000.
Yeah. Kyle is OG, man. He is OG. He goes all the way back. So
started in 1997.
Whew, boy, I tell you, different. We should have just a reminiscing episode. Way back in our day.
Hey, get off my lawn, you damn kids and your fancy video cards.
We had our 300A, and we've overclocked that by 70%. Yeah. Nice. Okay. I think we're coming up. We told Kyle an hour, but are we?
Yeah, now's your chance if you have any last burning questions.
The man
from Kyle.
I'm in.
His preference, if he's played Bayonetta or not. Who knows?
I've been going crazy on Hunt Showdown lately. My favorite game I've played since Borderlands 2. Wow. I simply love it.
Wow. I have heard some good things about it, that this is what what was that? Left 4 Dead. It's like a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead.
I would say that's true. I've blogged 50 hours in that game since it came out.
Nice.
And that was only a couple weeks ago. And I hadn't been doing that much desktop gaming. I didn't really generally spend time in VR now. But it's just been an awesome title. So yeah, it's still in early release or early access, and it's not that expensive.
Are you mining those Cry coins in that game yet?
No. I was looking at their roadmap yesterday. They look like their roadmap for Hunt Showdown looks like they could do some really stupid things to it and really mess it up, which I hope they do not.
We have a couple people who watched our stream yesterday. Kyle, what is your opinion on Dyson vacuums?
They suck.
That's a good. That is a good and bad response. That's perfect. I don't know if that's approval or not approval.
We got another guy. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Maybe you guys can. NGKHAN. It's Asian of some sort. Will Kyle change the new color for the whole website? Are you going to change your website anytime soon, Kyle?
No. No, we're doing old school black and maroon, just like we always have.
And Rush Dark says, "Isn't OCP the name of that company in RoboCop?"
They make really good products. Good products. They had some problems with that ED209, but I think they worked them out. So
ironed it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were originally Overclocker's comparison page. Well, actually, we were at KyleBennett.com back in '97, right? And then we actually started doing it for a living, sort of. And so we went to Overclocker's comparison page when we were covering the first Unreal at the time. I mean, we didn't even have really graphics accelerators at the time. And so when in 2000, when we pushed up to do this for real, and actually became my full-time job in 2000, we didn't have a URL. We didn't, so we had to figure out a URL for an actual domain name, because, KyleBennett.com/Texas/OCP really didn't work out too good for getting the message out. So we hard for hardware, HardOCP, and it was, looking back, it was one of the stupidest decisions ever made, because it's a horrible name and everybody gets it wrong still. I type it wrong still to this day. So hindsight 2020.
Whoops. IT77 on YouTube asks, do you like smacking down the band hammer on your forum?
Absolutely. That's where I take out all my frustration.
It's like Thor. Just hits him with the lightning.
Yeah, the ones that need banning are usually not too hard to pick out either.
We don't have a forum, so we don't have to worry about that. But we do have our chat here. So,
but
hey, you know what? Most of the people in our chat are pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I rarely have to do that. So I get to miss out on the fun, I guess.
PC gamers are awesome. That's the answer. All right,
cool.
I'm going to take us out.
Let's wrap it up.
So, Kyle, thank you for coming. I'm going to take us out. Check back in 2 weeks for terrible. See, this is just,
you're just reading again.
I'm going to get yelled at for looking at the notes.
Yeah.
Check back in 2 weeks for your fix of PC hardware on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, check us out on iTunes. Leave a review. Every time you do, another video card is sold or another CPU is made. I'm making that up. That's a lie. Also, we're on Google Play and Stitcher. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@PCWorld.com. Thank you for coming, Elaine Yee.
Bye, everybody.
Special guest, Kyle Bennett of HardOCP. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We will continue to follow this story as it develops. And Patrick Murray will take us out.
Have fun playing those games on those video cards. Bye.
Cool. Sorry, we went over a little bit.